Tonight, I'm really excited to have three of the city's best here to tackle our topic, which is how to build a better hospitality business in today's environment. On my left here, along with her collaborator, Rose Kentish, Kari Allen founded the Sparkke beverage company in 2016, and since then has been driving the brand's progressive and socially responsible mission through its range of beers and spirits. Founding one of Australia's first female-led brew clubs, this one here, Kari has a wealth of marketing knowledge and experience, and I'm so looking forward to speaking with you tonight. Thank you, Kari.
Thanks, Dan.
From the central coast of New South Wales via Melbourne, London, and more recently Singapore at the acclaimed barbecue restaurant Burnt Ends, Jake Kellie now calls Adelaide home, and with his first restaurant, Arkhé, has created one of Australia's hottest new restaurants. I've known Jake for many years and watched his evolution as a chef into restaurateur, and it's really great to have you here tonight, Jake. Thank you for joining us. And from opening their first venue, Nola, in 2016, in just a few short years, the Big Easy Group has gone on to create some of Adelaide's favourite venues, including the Stag Public House, Yasu George, and Anchovy Bandit. As managing director, Ollie Brown knows firsthand the issues the industry faces, and as a board member of the Adelaide Economic Development Agency, is helping to shape its future. It's really fantastic to have you here, Ollie. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to, given that we are here at Sparkke enjoying the amazing hospitality, I'd like to start by asking you, Kari, resilience is a word that we've heard countless times over the past 2 years, but sometimes resilience isn't enough. The news this week that you will be giving up this beloved space in a couple of weeks, I think, must have been a really challenging process to go through, and I'm wondering if you could take us through what you and Rose went through to arrive at this decision and what that means for you.
Yeah, really happy to do that. Welcome, everybody. Can I just see a show of hands of people who've never been here before tonight? Enjoy it before it's gone. We're here until the 4th of October. Please come back and enjoy. Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to say is it was lots and lots of gin. I've become the sort of 5 o'clock martini drinker. Who would have thought that would ever happen? But, you know, we opened on International Women's Day in 2019. And we did $4 million in turnover in our first year. We don't have gaming licenses. We don't have Coke or Pepsi in our venue. Like, we're very values focused, and we're very craft focused, and we're very makers focused here. So a lot of the traditional money makers don't mix into our revenue plan. And so we did our 4 million, and we were headed for 5 in our second year. And in March 2020, I don't think I need to tell anybody what happened, because our world changed in March 2020. And we are a small business, so we don't have deep pockets. And we battled it out. And I think Adelaide CBD is what Simon Bryant has recently described as broken. We've got 40% of the top spenders in the CBD in terms of office workers who are working from home 1 or 2 days a week. So the whole shape of the city in terms of consumption and who shows up and when and all of that, it's changed. And for us, we kept writing checks, but the city wasn't recovering quickly enough. And we had to make a decision really in the best interests of the community, in the best interests of our staff, and in the best interests of our shareholders. And for us, it's about leaving a legacy that we can be really proud of. So our DNA is in every corner of this building. There is nothing that I didn't personally either advise on, approve, or, pardon me, but bloody well do myself in this venue. And I think that legacy will continue to serve the community long after we're gone. And our future is pretty bright. it's just not in the CBD. And it's going on to an operator who has much deeper pockets. They're an ASX listed company. They have been a shareholder of our business. And as part of this deal, we will be parting ways. And it's a really healthy separation. So we wish the new guys coming in, and I say guys, because I think it will be a slightly more boyish than you, if I can say that. But we wish the guys a whole lot of success. But I think we're fiercely independent. And independence is so important. And so part of our battle across the last 3 years has been very much about how do we achieve a benefit and a return for our shareholders while staying true to our values. And I think that's a challenge for all of us, regardless of how small or large we are. I think that's genuinely a challenge that our industry faces.
Absolutely. I think this is a really good segue into asking Jake. You've been a chef around the world. You've had some amazing experience and work in some of the world's best restaurants. But this is your first turn as a restaurateur, as a business owner, as well as being a chef. And some of those challenges that Kari's speaking about absolutely affecting you more now than they have ever been before. So, as a first-time restaurateur, what are some of the things you know now that you wish someone had told you before you donned that hat?
That's a good question. I think it's really sort of separating yourself from being a chef to being an owner, and I think you really got to learn that pretty quickly. Obviously, I have shareholders and business partners as well, so keeping them happy is a key point as well. And obviously, we have to. There are certain parts in the business that we do have to make sacrifices where I would want it a specific way, but we can't do it that way because, we also need to make money and we need to run it a certain way to meet our costs and all that kind of stuff as well. So, there's a fine balance for sure. And I think it's, we have an amazing group of staff at arkhé that are also passionate and wanting to do certain things and be, amazing at what they do, which is good, but when it comes to the cost, then I have to put my owner's hat on and really switch on and have a good hard think about it. So,
what's one of the toughest decisions that you've had to make as a restaurateur that you wouldn't have as a chef?
All day dining. God help. Look, I think that was one big one. Obviously, our restaurant is very unique in a sense of we cook everything over fire, so we don't have any gas or electricity. So it's not, we can't just flick on a stove and cook something. We have to have constant coals all the time, which also takes labour. So, if the guys can't have a break in the afternoon, then I have unhappy staff and then I have no staff. So again, that's a balance, again, but looking into the business, like we need to make something in the bar, so we do like little nuts and olives and all that kind of stuff. So there's a different way of thinking about things that I actually have to do. But then it goes back to, is that on brand? Is that what we do? So, we need to be really unique in what we do because obviously want arkhé to be a good forefront for that. But I think all that dining really killed me, but we haven't done it yet, so.
Watch this space.
Yeah, big time.
Ollie, Kari mentioned the fight for independence, but of course independence is costly, and you run a group of venues which brings with it economies of scale. But the more venues you have, the more headaches you've got, the more fires to put out on a daily basis. How hard is it to balance the short-term needs of an operator as opposed to taking a longer-term view? How hard is it to take that longer-term view, especially for hospitality?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you need to have a long-term view. But it's kind of grown and changed and developed as our business has as well. We started Nola when I was 25 and rose-coloured glasses. We just maxed out our credit cards and stained all the wood in there ourselves, So we were working open till close and we didn't have kids, we didn't have commitments, and it was just, we could just grind through it and make it work. But as we've grown and developed, we've started to put in systems and processes and started to look to the future and what the business is going to be. And I was thinking about this kind of when you sent the question through. I thought I'd be a horrible employee. I would suck, and I'm only 32, so if this fails, I'm in trouble. So we're kind of looking to the future and what we're going to be and how that's going to be sustainable. So we've kind of made a lot of mistakes and learned from our challenges, and we've kind of, every time we've looked at it and we've discussed as a team, we've got a pretty amazing team around us now that we've sort of built and picked people just who are passionate about what they do. So we sit as a team, we're like, all right, how do we improve? How do we do this better? What's the future going to look like? What systems do we need to prevent this from happening again? So we've kind of gone from doing 12-hour days in the venue ourselves to doing quarterly shareholder meetings and 3 monthly planning days, and everything's kind of grown and developed and structured a lot to try and help us be sustainable. Mostly because I'd be a bad employee, I think. So.
And Kari, purpose has driven so much of the Sparkke company and what you've created there, and it's obviously so integral in what you've created. But how important, more broadly, is a business having a purpose in today's environment, and again, how expensive is it? Like, at what cost does purpose come?
Yeah, I'd flip that question on its head and say, how are you going to prosper in the future if you don't know what your purpose is? And if you are not communicating to your customers and your stakeholders? Because I think that it's pretty clear that consumers are looking for companies to step up. They're certainly no longer relying on government. I mean, let's be real, the data is really clear on that. And I say that because we were part of a CBA Women in Focus conference. And really CBA is very interested in getting business owners around tables, and they spend lots of money doing it because all of their research shows that consumers are looking everywhere but banks and everywhere but business. And so they need to understand and connect. So that's a real thing. The other thing is there's a really positive benefit. I don't know if anybody ever read James Watt's book on, he was one of the founders of Brewdog, and I can't remember the name of the book, but he talked about love your haters, because really your haters they're so hugely valuable. If you try to appeal to everyone, you will appeal to no one. And if you're going to appeal to no one, you've got one driver, and that's price. I just give you Dan Murphy's. But also purpose delivers a real marketing edge. So if you guys see the front of the bar here, that was our first ever can. So we launched with a crowdfunding pre-sale, and we sold $107,000 worth of beers in less than 4 weeks, of a brand that no one had ever heard of a product that hadn't been made. And we showed a lot of can renders. And the Change the Date can is the first can that had a Pilsner inside of it, and that's what's on the front of that bar. And we put it there because we wanted to always remember where we came from. It wasn't really the issue, although we are very much about inclusivity, social equity. But the byproduct of that is that Eddie Betts and Anna Scully would come down here once a month when they were playing at the Oval, and they would bring 100 people to the pub. They'd phone and they'd say, we're coming up at 11:30, and can we drop in? And they would stand in front of that bar. They didn't make a big deal about it. Michael Laughlin and Adam Goods come and stand at this bar when they're in Adelaide. As a matter of fact, if I find out that Mismatch is going to take this bar down, I'm going to approach all 3 guys and say, come get it. Please come get it. Let's not have it go to waste, because we don't have any of those cans left anymore. Purpose is a marketing asset. Purpose is a driver of business. Purpose is why people work for you. It's why they stay for you. It's why they fight for you. They drink the Kool-Aid, but if you don't drink your own Kool-Aid, you're fucked. Okay, now where's my guy? Okay, you're bleeping it, okay? He said I can do an F-bomb, and I said, no, I can only do F-bombs if you promise you're going to edit them out. So I got your name, hey.
Amazing, thank you, Kari. Jake, it's been a pretty amazing 12 or more months for you with arkhé. Opening your first restaurant, it's on all the lists, number 2 in the Delicious 100 here in South Australia. Congratulations. Up for Best New Restaurant at the Gourmet Traveller Awards next week. Amazing stuff, great achievements, one and all. Obviously great to be acknowledged, but how important to business success are such things as awards, are such things as media coverage? Like, what's the value of it to you as a restaurateur?
Oh, look, I think it's I think for the staff more than anything, I think it's a good driving force. To get nominated for these awards, I'm very humbled and very appreciative. Being surrounded by such an amazing group of restaurants. But for my staff, they get a real kick out of it. And I remember when I was, when we won, we come number 5 in Asia's 50 Best in Singapore. And I remember I was like a kid in a candy shop and I couldn't have been happy. And my boss Dave just looked at me and goes, there's still customers to be served and there's still a job to be done. But the kick I got out of it at that age was amazing. It's something that I'll may or may not get again. Got Greta and Bart's here on the floor and my front of house team that they strive for excellence every day. So if we're putting that forward, I think it's it's amazing. So, but no, very 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 humbled and happy. So, yeah. Very quiet on that one.
Yes, of course.
Can I have that? Sorry to do this. I was the director of merchandising for Nike in New York City. Awards, advertising is one of the most valuable things that you can have for your business. This is a guy who is so humble and so lovely that he may not say that, but that stuff is solid gold. And when it's got a solid foundation, such as your foundation, it's invaluable. Yeah, it's good for the staff. It's phenomenal for business. Sorry, I just needed to say that because my marketing head is just going, no.
That's great. And in fact, Ollie, I really wanted to ask you, given that you've got a group of venues under an umbrella, the Big Easy Group, how hard is it to build individual brands and an umbrella brand, and how do you go about it? And how do your venues keep their individualism whilst you're still talking as one group?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few parts of this, and Sophie, our marketing manager, can pull me up if I'm wrong here. But for us, there's the Big Easy Group, or the Big Easy brand, was created facing outwards pretty much as an I lost you. Gonna need another beer for us. We created the Big Easy Group brand as a proactive employment play, essentially. So back in 2019, we wanted to attract the best staff and the best people. So we wanted to put an outward-facing brand that would attract people. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind that. There's staff wellness programs and making sure people aren't overworked or underpaid, and there's a whole mechanism behind it. But originally it was a proactive employment tool, which then come COVID was fantastic. The kind of fruits of the tree are kind of presenting themselves now. So that's one aspect of it. The second is systems and processes. So the systems and processes behind the business is our engine room. Every venue has the same systems, the same training, the same onboarding, the same offboarding. Everything is built, the same booking system, same point. I could keep going on. We're proudly sponsored by Mr. Yum, who we do use in our venues as well. But
branding on that one.
But we have this engine of systems, and then we just put a different face on it, essentially. So we build the river, and the water can take whatever out it wants. So every individual venue has its own. It's the best bit about hospitality. It's why we do it. It's the creative side of things. People want to get in there and make the drinks they love, make the food they love. And if you start stripping that away from them and tell them to make the same burger in every venue, you kind of lose why we got into it and the passion. So we're putting the systems of McDonald's without replicating the same thing over and again. We just want people to be in there be able to do what they do best and absolutely love it. So that's sort of how the different venues operate.
And how is that working for you? Like, obviously it's a great overarching aim, but in practice, what are some of the hiccups that you come across?
Yeah, there's a lot of hiccups, but honestly, it's mostly been good. Jake and I were quickly chatting before about award rates and pays changing, and it's allowed us to create matrices of wages across the venue. So your CDP level 1, 2, 3, and there's a rhyme and a reason, there's your experience, there's where you've come from, there's how long you've been in there. And you can sit someone, because we're sitting people down and they're like, why can't I get paid 65? You offer me 63. It's like, well, can't actually tell you why. So we've built a reason and a rhyme and a process as to why. It's like, you will get to that. Let's sit down in 6 months and see how you're going. You're only just elevated. So for us, it's became, we can't sit down and tell someone, sorry, that's the way it is, and not explain it. We want to be able to have a reason behind it and a genuine process as to why that is what it is. So for us, it's been a huge tool, and that creates confidence in your staff, which creates trust, which gets the results you need.
I might just add to that. I think there's obviously quite new being a restaurateur. I think even coming back from my career, that you used to go to do a trial for a chef and you got told that this is the job and this is what you got paid. Where a part in my head really struggles now is that it's the opposite way around now. And the opportunities that you do get or that you wanted to push for when I was younger or anything like that in restaurants, that it's not there anymore. And I feel like it's a little bit disheartening because you look what you've went through at your age, and like to try and get where you are now, where it's just a little bit easier these days. Where we've had multiple guys come through since we've opened that want a certain salary wage, and it's like, well, no, this is the award wage, but you really need that staff member. And then we ended up turning around and paying them what they wanted to because we needed that staff. It's just a little bit mind-boggling of how our industry's changed so much, especially since COVID, and how like kitchens have changed and restaurants have changed over the course of the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get back to staff and attracting and retaining talent. I know we've covered a lot of that already, but Kari, getting back to using your marketing brain while we've got you, people in the room might be really wanting to know what are some easy, quick marketing wins if they haven't really started a sophisticated campaign? What are some good do's, and more importantly, what are some don'ts for new players?
I suspect this is a little bit like ice to Eskimo, so I really apologize if that's the case. You can have a little snooze or, go to loop, whatever, walk around the venue. It's really pretty. Look, I am a great believer in the elevator spiel. I think it's really critical that you can articulate who you're for and what you're for. And I think that turns into things like vision statements, etc. I think your values are absolutely critical. And I think having a values matrix when you're making a marketing decision is really, really important. And that matrix of values also works on what events are you going to participate in, what won't you participate in, what partnerships will you take, what won't you take, the do's and don'ts. Like if you're running everything through your values, then who knows, after 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears, you too could sell your venue. And so we don't hold ourselves out as knowing more than the rest of the industry. We're really proud to be a part of a hard-working industry that we think is deeply resilient. We do think there are a lot of problems that need to be addressed. I'm not sure that marketing is top of the list of what needs to be addressed in our industry, but I think that if you start from actually genuinely being able to articulate who you are and who you're for, you go a long way. You can't go wrong with getting that right.
So marketing might help, but what are some of the things the industry does need to face? What are some uncomfortable truths that perhaps aren't being spoken that need to be addressed?
Yeah, note to self, never say to Dan, let's just experiment with truth in this session. Okay, so I think there are a couple, and I'm just going to bullet point them, and then I'm going to pass the microphone off really quickly to someone else, so be careful, it might be you. Okay, it's a hard industry, and I don't think pay equity is happening, and I think it needs to happen. It's a hard industry, and consumers aren't prepared to pay for value. So everybody's focused on taking fucking shortcuts because you're going to use a frozen chicken breast if you can get away with it instead of a quality product because the consumer doesn't want to pay. It's a hard industry because we have generational culture that drives what happens out of sight of the public, out of sight of management, and sometimes in the arms of management, and we really need to fix that. I didn't realize what a big problem bullying was in the kitchen until we started a venue, and in our first 90 days we fired 2 people. I had no idea. And it was cultural. They're not bad people. It's cultural, but they didn't want to fix it. I think people's relationships with alcohol are an issue. I think sexual harassment is an issue. I think until we take care of each other and we tell the truth about things, that we're going to struggle to keep the great people who come into this industry in the industry, and we need them. I mean, I think we're all sitting here looking at what's happened to our industry when this steady stream of people who are working desperately to get a visa, who will accept almost anything, come into our system. Take those people out, and we need to do a whole lot better taking care of everybody who's in the industry. And I think everybody here in this room would have some experience of that, and I hope I'm not, flogging ice to Eskimos.
I reckon I'll touch on one point. I think pay equity. The last 4 years I've been in kitchens, they've all been, my sous chef or head chef has all been female. I find that harder working. And smarter. And they can deal with a lot more. My head chef Maria is amazing. She's been my head chef for the last 6 months since we've opened. She's been amazing, like in the sense of a supportive network. She deals with all the staff like really well. So I think, and obviously at Burn Ends, like I had Yvette and Deborah, which were also female, and they were amazing. So I do vouch on that for sure. Something that definitely needs to change because there are really good female chefs out there, and I'm very lucky to have 2 of them at arkhé. So, but I've lost my train of thought now.
National gender pay gap is 14% in 2022 across all industries and sectors.
Culture is definitely a big thing for us at arkhé. It was something that, I sat down with Greta when I first hired her. She's our VM. She was with Jock for 4.5, nearly 5 years, and it was something that I made a very paramount, like a very strict thing that this restaurant is to be bound on culture. I learned a lot through Dave at Burn Ends that if you have good culture, you will have a successful business. And that's exactly the same words as I said to Greta. And we have probably the most tightest team I'm going to vouch on this in Adelaide. We have such a supportive network, whether it be kitchen or front of house. We have a great relationship between both. And you can achieve so much more within the walls of what you have. So I think that's been a good stepping stone for us, and I think it's not necessarily all about me, it's about everyone that's involved to make it happen. So, and we wouldn't be arkhé now if it wasn't without them. So yeah. Well, yeah, that's the answer to that, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, I think the guys have said so much here already, and I think a lot of the challenges that the industry faces are challenges that society's facing. I don't think it is just hospitality that has a gender pay gap, or I don't think it's just hospitality that has bullying or sexual harassment, but it is an issue, and I think that people are starting to talk about it and focus on it and try to improve. I know as a group we spend a lot of time figuring out how to do things better. We're not the best we can be, but we know we can always be better. And I think as long as people are striving to constantly improve, I think the industry has a really bright future. I see so many people pushing hard. I mean, I don't need to plug for Kerry's daughter, but there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do better and trying to improve. And yeah, I only see it starting to take effect now. And just the culture of kitchens has historically been poor. It's been tough, it's been challenging, but then you hear Jake talk about front of house and back house getting along, and anyone in hospitality, that's not always the case. And it is so important, like little things like just wearing the same uniform. But there is also a huge divide between career and casual.
Yeah.
And often in kitchens, they're career. And it can be pretty infuriating when you speak to someone that doesn't give a fuck. And that is often kitchens versus front of house. Because people are there on uni breaks and they want to clock in and clock off, and they're there at 9 a.m, sweating blood, sweat and tears, or they're going to forage before they come to work, and they can find that really challenging. And I don't know the answer, but it's definitely a huge challenge. So yeah, there's challenges we're facing, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic about where we're going as an industry.
I think that's a really great point, the difference between career and casual. So how do we as an industry lift up the prestige, lift up the numbers of people who want to do hospitality as a lifelong career? Pardon me, especially women. I think out of like how to make it that you can have a family, you can actually see through, raise a family and still have hospitality as your career. What can we do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Jake and I were actually talking about this at an event a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if there's anyone from the formal education here, but the education system isn't really doing enough for hospitality. It's, as far as schools are concerned, it's seen as bottom of the run, or if you don't do well, you might end up in a kitchen, and that's not the case. There's people which have built beautiful careers. I went to uni and then worked in a bar, so there's, it's not to be looked down on. There's huge, amazing careers and amazing opportunities, and it's fun. It's a good thing to do, but I don't think the education system's keeping up. So we actually took it upon ourselves during COVID, because I can't sit still. I pretty much sat on a computer for 6 weeks and tried to write a training program online for all of our staff, which was great until none of them did it. So I spent months building all of this content of how to, use a white cloth to polish glasses and what the difference between an IPA and a pale ale is. But it was the engagement. And it's like we're still trying to bridge, and we're still trying to upskill and educate. But I think accredited systems are huge. I think Westset as a brand, is it the best wine training in the world? Questionable. Is it an amazing brand and an accreditation that people can put on their resumes? Yes. And I think we need more of that, more things that people can stamp their name on and be like, I've done this and I have a skill which people from, I'll let Jake talk on this more, but people coming out of trade school, you can choose to do your 4-year apprenticeship, or you can do your 6 months of schooling and ask for a qualified chef wage. That's a very different skill set. And I just don't think that the education system's really keeping up with what we need as an industry.
Yeah, I'll vouch on that. We're trying to get like just an apprentice, and there's no one. We've engaged Genevieve Liston. She's working for the TAFE Institute in South Australia. She came to arkhé, and I was like, look, I'm looking for either a second or a third. And she looked at me and goes, I've got no one. No one in the sense that one have, the driving capacity, or that we could put in here that it's like worth, just worth hanging around. For me, that was alarm bells. Like, for chefs, like where are they going to come from? Where are they all going to come from in like 5 or 6 or 7 years' time? It sounds like there's going to be no one. Which, I could lead on to something else. Then I look into like, what does it mean for a small business, or what does that mean for arkhé? Where is arkhé going to be in 5 or 6 or 7 years' time? We obviously, there's going to be a turn of staff at some point, with our 2nd or 3rd or 4th year. fingers crossed, where are they going to come from if there's no one coming through? Which is it's a massive concern. It's, you know, there's only so many hours I want to do on the stoves per week, but, you know, and my staff are like that as well. So, or opening a new business, you know, where, you know, drag people from the venue, but then who's going to replace them at the same time? So, you know, I think for Adelaide in itself, we really, you know, I think one of your questions, Dan, is how can the government really help? Is trying to implement something into our youth. You know, it's you know, I've been in Adelaide now for 2 years, and like looking at, say, Sydney and Melbourne, yeah, fuck, Adelaide's a little bit behind the 8 ball. So we need to probably pick up the slack on that.
Do you want me to respond?
Strap in.
My team is sitting over there going, he, never give her a mic. Okay, your question kicked off about women. So one of the things that I always find is really helpful, if you want to know what women think, ask them. Don't make decisions for them, ask them en masse. So that's my first kind of thing out the channel. But I agree with these guys 100%. As a matter of fact, I think we're also agreed that we're going to finish here and then just kick on and drink and talk about how clever we are. But I think the system is challenged. I know that I'm in a think tank at Flinders University. I'm on an advisory board there that's talking about the future of education and how wrecked it is at university. And I've just been asked to participate in a TAFE think tank about how training ought to be delivered and where it ought to be delivered. And I'm pretty convinced that a TAFE program needs to be delivered in me&u. And I 100% believe the guys are on the money when they say it's got to be about reputation and prestige. We have got to get back to valuing what these people do. It's so hard, and they're good at it. And when they're good, they bring phenomenal skill. And I don't see the skills really, I mean, we really want your systems and processes. So, you know, do you ever share? But most venues don't have them, and in-house training struggles, and people are learning on the job. I think we need to kind of just get that all a little bit more organized and like the wife said, you know, give people an accreditation that they can take forward. But if we don't do this, you know, tourism employs 1 in 15 people worldwide, right? I don't know what the number is for hospitality, but it's closely aligned, hey? So we've got a big reason for getting this right. Oh.
I think something we've touched on over the evening is attracting staff, bringing up the prestige of the industry. A lot of that, and the new generation coming through, a lot of that is work-life balance, a 40-hour week, you know, not working weekends. How does that reconcile with increasing costs every which way you look? You know, everything's costing more to put on the plate. And how do we get the staff that are skilled and want to not do the 60, 70, 80-hour weeks that hospitality is renowned for the world over?
Yeah, it's hard. I went to a venue in Melbourne the other day and it said 10% surcharge on Saturdays, 12.5% surcharge on Sundays and public holidays, and 2% surcharge on weekdays. I was like, all right, so there's surcharge every day. You can just put your prices up 2%. But how does everyone feel about paying a surcharge on Saturday and Sundays?
Are you good
so
for it?
One person doesn't mind. It's actually an interesting one. Not the Belgian, the Bombay Bicycle Club a few years ago put up a sign that had schnitzels every other day, schnitzels on public holidays. Now it's going to cost us $50 a schnitzel. And I get the protest, but it really backfired. People didn't like it, but it is more expensive for us. Our wages are done on cost of goods. Let's break it down into really bulk sections. Let's say it's 33% of wages. Let's say there's 33 or 35% on cost of goods. Let's say there's 10% on wages. You get 10% on everything else. You get left with 10% profit. You know, you start throwing in wages going from 35% to 70%. You're just down 20%. And people aren't willing, no one here is willing to pay that surcharge. So how do you lump that in? Well, you put a 2% surcharge on every other day. You know, you need to try and level your costs out across the week to make up for those things. And then, you know, there's a Queen's holiday birthday tomorrow. Fantastic.
Oh my
Everyone gets a day off. You look at the books and you're like, sweet, we've just lost thousands, but we already had bookings when it was put in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's huge change. You had another part to the question I thought I had an answer to as well, but I can't remember. Yeah.
I'll jump in there and say, well, staffing is, the costs are going up. You have, as you mentioned earlier, implemented me&u through some of your venues in order to solve one of those issues. How has that been for you, and what advice would you have for operators who think that, you know, adding some sort of tech tools into an order of service or into a hospitality environment is anti-hospitality?
Yeah, we look at, we're huge adopters of tech, and we've been partnered up with our team to do our design agency, to do a marketing company. We've always been very forward with the technology, and for us it's an easy litmus test. It's what's the guest experience? Is sitting at a table and asking how they want their eggs cooked, or if they want bacon on the side or avocado, is that adding guest experience? I don't think so. I think that's just unnecessary friction. I think when you get greeted in 3 seconds, someone's smiling and they're saying welcome, I think that's hospitality. I think learning someone's name or learning if they had a hard day or what they drink, I think that's hospitality. Asking someone if they want a steak rare or medium rare, I don't think that's hospitality. So for us, we measure everything on a guest experience. And some venues we put in me&u, specifically me&u and no other across NOLA, the Stag Public House, Bowden Brewing, and Bottega Bandito. And the uptake was honestly hugely different. NOLA, which I would say is a premium brand, all about guest experience and all about looking at the 400 whiskies and picking what you want, had an amazing uptake on me&u, pretty much on food. Food basket size went up, people were buying more, and I was really surprised because people didn't go to NOLA to order fried chicken and have a good experience. They went to NOLA to have an experience buying a whiskey if they wanted, and if they wanted chicken, they would just order it. So the basket size went up and the friction went down and the lines at the bar reduced. Huge win. Bottega Daytime Cafe, I thought me&u would boom. People didn't want it. They got greeted when they came in. There was staff running coffee, staff running food. So they just grabbed people. Hey, can I order? Hey, can I order? So Bowden Brewing, perfect uptake for me&u. People just sit there, they just want their beers and their food and hang out with friends. So for us, I think adopting technology is massive, and I think with the staff shortages, you need to pick the right ones. But for us personally, it's all about guest experience. It's all about how people leave your venue and what they say about you, and if it adds to it or if it detracts from it.
This is actually to everyone, because it's such a part of everyone's business experience, and that is partnerships. And partnerships are so important to creating an overall successful business and an experience. I'd love to hear from each of you about what you look for in a partner, what makes your partnerships work, and any advice for people who might be looking to get into business with a new partner, and anything that they might like to know.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I've still got the mic. I feel like I'm talking over here. But I think Kari and I were before, a partnership's like a brand, and it needs to be based off of values. We've been so lucky with the group we have. They're so aligned, and Josh, one of my business partners, is just a litmus test for honesty. You run anything by him, and his preferences himself last, but I've heard so many horror stories, especially in hospitality, of bad partnerships or greedy partners. So for us, it's just aligning values, and if you genuinely want to achieve the same thing, you'll create a good partnership. But Jake will have a different take on this with partnering with the people that he has, but I think putting people in the industry, if you're talking about pay and chefs don't get paid and they work hard for 15 years to build a reputation, they don't always have the money. So I think people which have the ability need to back people in and trust them, but give them
give them equity in the business too, because it's so
Yeah,
unfair.
right.
It's like flogging a horse. You just putting it in, they're going to do your 60-hour weeks and make delicious food, and when you spend, they'll kick you out and take the profits. I think it's so unfair. For me, hospitality is a partnership. It's about the experience of the staff and the guests, and I think owner-operators are huge in hospitality, and I think that's what makes it sort of great.
Yeah, look, for me it was a pretty big change of pace, going from being a head chef to an owner, an executive chef. My business partners Marty Palmer and Brett Matthews have been absolutely amazing through the whole process. They've sort of, again, going back to values, they've seen where I've come from, they know what I will do. I have a niche and I'm a very driven person in that sense, but also like what we were talking about before, you still, you've got to always think about it's not always about you. Even though they're giving you an amazing opportunity, you still need to have that communication at the same time. So, Marty is more of a forefront at arkhé than Brett, but the foundation that Marty gives me is the infrastructure that if we were just out on our own, I wouldn't necessarily have. So the office work, all our invoices, all that kind of stuff. It's not stuff that I don't necessarily I don't have to worry about on a day-to-day basis. So, very, very, very fortunate and very proud to be with Marty in arkhé and Brett. Obviously, the sort of icons down here in Adelaide, and they've given me a platform to open my dream restaurant. So.
Oh man, partnerships are really hard. I mean, think about your own personal partnerships and the number of crappy relationships you go through as you're growing up until you've kissed enough frogs to find the proverbial prince or princess, whatever it is. And I think be slow to enter them and really take your time and be fully considered. We've spent a lot of time on the topic of partnerships over the last 2 and a bit years. And one of the challenges is there's no way to always know. And, I think your business is ridiculously the exception because you guys were like babies. You were peanuts. And you came in and you built that and you've gone from strength to strength and you've done it together. And I think that's unusual. I think you're the exception, not the rule. But absolutely values matter, and take the time to explore them, but also know how you're going to uncouple if you're going to uncouple. Just make sure that it's super, super clear, and it's not enough to have somebody else read the fine print. In our sale process here with the Whitmore, I've been working on this exact transaction for 6 months. 6 months. I've been doing this and reading documents, and I get a phone call and somebody's saying, we've got to check this out. And then they say, can you go back and read the Constitution? And I just go, yeah. So know your stuff, know it. Make sure you get really great advice. And I think everybody here has the good human rule. Nobody wants to be with a bunch of, dickheads. Pardon the French. But good humans are the difference between success and I think conflict.
Yeah. The no dickhead rule works so well.
But this isn't the...
I'll take any microphone. That doesn't mean that your staff don't have to work hard. I think that's one of the things that people confuse. In this industry, you better work hard. If you're going to be successful, you better be willing to work hard. Right? Maybe you only work 4 days a week. Oh, starting early. Yeah. So with our kitchen staff pre-COVID, they worked 4 days a week, but they worked 48 hours in those 4 days. And you know what? They put in extra time. But you have to work hard. So you have to actually kind of not mix up the requiring that people be committed and work hard with the no dickhead rule. And I think people, particularly at staff level, get real confused about that.
we're talking about 45 hours. It was the first time it was last week, it was the first time all my chefs did below 50.
Yeah.
Which has been like the biggest push over the last, more so the last 3 to 4 months for my staff to get to, because in kitchen you generally gauge a pretty good idea of how they're struggling or if they're doing well. And yeah, it was like last week was a bit of a sigh of relief, because I feel like arkhé it's a beast. It is a beast. But we're finally getting to a point where our staff are doing the right amount of hours, they're walking every day, they're happy. Before I left to come here today, I saw smiles on every chef's face and staff in front of us. So, that's really good after only 10 months.
We are almost out of time, unfortunately, because I could stay here all night talking to the three of you. But before we go, Jake, you touched on it earlier, but I do want to ask each of you if there is one thing that you could ask government at any level, what would you ask them to help the industry, to help it thrive, to help South Australia remain such a exciting and vital food culture that it has, and it has developed over many, many years, but there are so many things that might get in the way of that continuing. So I'd love to hear what you would ask them.
Yeah, well, I think I've said this in a couple of things the last few weeks, and very obviously having arkhé, very privileged to be a part of it, but I feel like the next 12 to 18 months, I think Adelaide's going to give Sydney and Melbourne a good run for their money. I think with good restaurants and Chatty Bandit, which I love going there every time. You got Botanic, you got McGill, you got Africola, you still got the little places that have been there from the start, that are still doing amazing jobs. And I think that's only going to get better for the state. And I think the more places that do open, it's really giving our industry a good shot down here, because I feel like Adelaide has a lot of good attributes that Sydney and Melbourne don't have, especially in regional areas like McLaren Vale and Barossa. So, I think going back to my point before, I think the government really needs to look into rejuvenating, our chefs and front of house coming through younger ages and offering good opportunities for them early on so they get into it. So I think that's the key, especially what these guys are doing. Definitely.
Beautiful, yeah. Government has so many levels. There's local, state, federal. Everyone, I remember in COVID, and everyone was talking to the Premier and being like, why don't you just extend JobKeeper? Like, that's federal government. Like, it's not over people blaming the government for things when private enterprise to just get on and do it. There's some federal things we need some reform, or we need some effort, we need some money put into training massively. It's just not there, the support's not there. But as far as South Australia and the brand, I think it's taking leaps and bounds, and I think it's taking leaps and bounds from people like Jake putting South Australian food on the map. But the government's not going to open the next great restaurant. I think they need to cut tape around licensing.
Yeah, straight
I
they
think
do.
the small venues license was the beating heart of the city, and I think that people are graduating from quality small bars to quality small restaurants. The next step's hard. How do you go from a quality small restaurant to a quality big restaurant? Yeah. If you're going to go around and try and open a 500 person venue on Halifax Street, say, it's going to be so challenging to get the license through, because the old boys on the AHA are going to turn out and be like, the need is filled. You don't need another venue there, the need is filled, but all it's doing is hampering creativity. It's just, why should an old pub that's not doing well because they're breathing their life into it just get to remain because it was always there? So I think I backtracked a lot. So maybe the government does need to do something.
Kari?
Fortunately, we're not the old pub. I think there needs to be industrial law reform. So we talked about holidays, we talked about Sundays. Honestly, I hope I don't offend anybody, but if there are 3 people in this room that go to church every Sunday, I'll be surprised. Some of that legislation and that structure, it's just legacy, and it needs to be fixed. And, we shouldn't pay what we pay in some of the awards related to holidays and opening hours, because lots of people want to work lots of different ways, and I think they need to fix that and make it work for the industry. I'm all about the training and accreditation. I think that's really important. And I am all about South Australia as a local premium brand, and I think there needs to be a big investment in that. And that actually services all of us. And the last thing that I think is that our industry needs to be more together. Like, I go to a number of these forums every year, but I don't go, there's not a regular forum that I show up in, and I normally show up and I'm sitting up here, I'm not out there chatting with people. And I'm not sure the AHASA, for all that they do, they're not the people to bring us together. That's not the kind of bringing together that I'm talking about. We need to be a powerful force. We need to have a united voice. We need to help each other. And I'm with you. We need to get the job done.
Thank you. I think that is a really poignant and powerful note to end on. I think that as an industry, we are better together, and I think coming together is something that will help the industry grow and prosper in the future. I've loved this chat, amazing. Thank you so much, Kari Allen, Jake Kellie, and Ollie Brown. Please join me in thanking our panelists.